The door swung open before I even finished lighting the last candle. My sister stepped in, dragging 2 giant suitcases, like she owned the place. And then she said it, the sentence that made every guest freeze mid-sip. Mom said, "We live here now." Hi everyone, my name is Ariana, and until that moment, I believed my family only used me emotionally, never physically. I was wrong. I stared at her, completely stunned, while whispers rippled across the room. My mom wasn't even looking at me. She was smiling at the guests like this was all planned. Seconds later, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Don't say anything right now, we'll talk later." Not "can we explain?" Not "this is a misunderstanding." Just a command to stay quiet in my own house. I swallowed my anger and said nothing. Not because she told me to, but because suddenly I didn't trust a single word coming out of their mouths. My sister unzipped her suitcase right there in the living room. And that's when I saw something that made the silence inside me turn sharp. My sister didn't even hesitate. She opened her suitcase like she was moving into a hotel she'd prepaid for. Clothes, toiletries, chargers, everything spilled out across my brand new rug. Guests exchanged confused glances. A few tried to pretend nothing was happening. Most just watched the spectacle like it was free entertainment. I stood there smiling politely, but inside, something cold started forming. My mom finally walked toward me, pretending to help clean up, and whispered under her breath, "Ariana, she'll stay here a while. Don't make a scene." A while. A while. Like my home was a spare storage unit she'd suddenly gained access to. If she had asked, even once, maybe I would have tried to understand. But this wasn't a request. This was a decision they had made without me, and executed in front of an entire room full of people. And everyone acted like I was the unreasonable one for standing frozen. What they didn't know was this. For years, my family had treated me like the responsible one, the strong one, the one who would always swallow discomfort to keep peace. I played along until that night when something inside me shifted. Because when my sister pulled out a folded envelope from her suitcase and hid it quickly when she saw me watching, I realized this wasn't just about a place to stay. Something was being planned. The envelope she hid wasn't small. Thick. Heavy. The kind people don't casually toss into luggage unless it matters. And the way she shoved it back in, her eyes darting to Mom for confirmation. Yeah, something was brewing. The party kept going around us. Music, laughter, clinking glasses, while my living room slowly turned into my sister's personal bedroom. She even asked one of my friends, "Can you move that vase? It'll look better on my side of the room." My side of the room. Mom shot me a warning look, that familiar mix of guilt and domination she'd perfected for years. "Let her settle. We'll sort things out," she mouthed. But every time my sister spoke, the cracks widened. She told a guest, "Yeah, Mom said Ariana has extra space. She won't mind. She never does." Another, "We're basically moving in. It'll be easier for all of us." Easier for who? Because I certainly didn't remember signing up to be anyone's live-in host. But the worst part? My sister acted like this was some reward she'd earned, walking around, inspecting rooms, even asking which cabinet she could use in the kitchen. And then, while she thought I wasn't looking, she slipped upstairs with that envelope. My gut twisted. Whatever was inside it was meant for me. I followed her upstairs quietly, the sound of the party fading behind me. My house. My walls. And yet I felt like an intruder in my own life. My sister was in the guest room, my guest room, kneeling beside her half-open suitcase. The thick envelope was in her hand again. This time she wasn't hiding it from Mom, she was hiding it from me. I stepped forward just enough for the floorboard to creak. She jolted. The envelope vanished back into the suitcase, like it was radioactive. "Ariana." She forced a smile. Too quick, too stiff. "Just organizing my things." My things. She said it like she already lived here. I scanned the room. Her shoes lined against the wall. Her coat hanging in the closet. Her makeup bag on the dresser. She wasn't staying the night. She was moving in. Before I could speak, Mom appeared in the doorway, her voice sweet enough to rot teeth. "Ariana, please don't start." Your sister needs stability. You have a whole house. Don't be difficult. There it was, the lifelong script. My feelings? Irrelevant. Her decisions? Law. But the envelope, it kept tugging at my mind. So when they both went downstairs again, laughing like nothing happened, I walked back into the room, stared at that suitcase, and what I found tucked under it made my heart stop cold. It was a folder, not the envelope, worse. A thick manila folder half hidden beneath her suitcase, edges worn, papers stuffed inside like it had been handled too many times. I picked it up with trembling fingers. Inside were printed screenshots of my bank statements, my salary, my mortgage details, even the value of my house. Page after page, evidence that my sister and my mother had been discussing my finances behind my back. Notes scribbled in Mom's handwriting read, "She can afford it. She won't say no." This is the best option for her sister. Best option for her sister. Not for me. But the final page was what made my blood run cold. A drafted message, clearly written by Mom, explaining why it was more logical for my sister to live with me permanently. It even listed chores I would be responsible for since I was more stable and organized. They had planned everything. The invasion, the manipulation, the silence. All while smiling at me like family was a warm blanket and not a weapon. I sat on the edge of the guest bed, the folder heavy in my lap, my heartbeat louder than the music downstairs. They thought I'd swallow it. They counted on it. But instead, something in me calmed, dangerously calm, because I suddenly knew exactly how I would end this. Gracefully, quietly, and in a way they would never forget. Revenge doesn't come from rage. It comes from clarity. And that night, sitting in the guest room my sister tried to claim as her own, clarity washed over me like ice water. I put every page back exactly where I found it, same order, same folds, because I wanted them to believe their plan was still hidden. Then I went downstairs and smiled. A soft, polite, perfect smile. The kind that always made my mother think I was agreeing with her. I let the party finish. I let my sister brag. I let Mom act like the queen of family decisions. And early the next morning, while the house was still quiet, I started moving. I packed her things. Every suitcase she dragged into my house. Every shoe she lined against my wall. Every item she scattered like I was her maid. I placed everything neatly inside my car. Then I took the folder and slipped it into a second envelope, this one addressed to my parents. Inside, I added one more thing. A simple handwritten note. If you want to manage someone's life, try managing your own. Your daughter is not moving into my home. And neither are you. I drove to my parents' house, placed the suitcases on their porch, rang the bell once, and walked away before anyone answered. But that wasn't the part that left them speechless. The note I left taped to the top suitcase. That was the real blow. By noon, my phone was exploding. 20 missed calls from Mom, 11 from my sister. A flurry of messages ranging from guilt trips to outright demands. But none of them mentioned the note. Not yet. Then, finally, a single text from Mom came through, short, frantic, and trembling even through the screen. "Ariana, what did you mean by this?" I didn't reply. Instead, I imagined her reading the words I had taped to the suitcase. "If you think I'm your solution, you've misunderstood the problem." Underneath it, I had added copies of the pages they thought I hadn't seen, my bank statements, the drafted letter, the notes in her handwriting. I highlighted one line. "Ariana never says no." That was the line that destroyed them. Because when Mom realized I had seen everything, her entire narrative collapsed. Every manipulation, every assumption, every plan. That afternoon, she and my sister showed up at my door, pounding, shouting, demanding an explanation like I owed them something. I didn't open the door. Instead, I watched from the upstairs window as my sister screamed, "You embarrassed us. How could you do this?" Embarrassed because their plan failed. Mom tried a different tactic, voice cracking. "Ariana, we're family. You can't do this to us." But I could. And I did. Then my sister said something that revealed the final truth. A truth that made my revenge complete. My sister's voice went sharp enough to cut glass. Mom told me you owed us this. She promised you'd take care of me until I got married. She said you were the stable one, the responsible one, the one who should support the family. She said this house was basically OURS too. There it was. The truth. Not slipped accidentally, but screamed from a place of entitlement so deep it had become delusion. They didn't just plan to move in. They believed they had a right to my life. I stepped away from the window, calm settling into my bones like steel. I walked downstairs, opened the door just enough for them to see my face. Nothing else. I don't owe you anything, I said quietly. Not my house. Not my peace. Not my silence. My sister's mouth twisted. So that note, it was real? I nodded. Every word. Because the final line I wrote, the one that left them stunned into silence, was this. My home is not your escape plan. And I am no longer your backup life. Their faces crumbled. First confusion, then humiliation, then a dawning realization that their control over me had finally shattered. I closed the door gently. No slam. No drama. Just closure. And as the lock clicked into place, I felt something I hadn't felt around my family in years. Freedom.